sweltering heart of ancient Rome, right into the belly of the Senate itself. The torches are flickering, the marble is sticky with heat and the smell. Imagine a mix of damp wool togas and old olives left out too long. You're seated among dozens of men pretending to be alert, debating matters of the empire while secretly wishing they were anywhere else. And you, well, you're barely holding on. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Bonus points if you're already in bed. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You drag your sandals across the stone floor past the statue of some long-dead consul, who probably also hated meetings, and slide into your assigned seat in the Curia Julia. The stone beneath you is hot, baked by the Roman sun all day, and now slowly leaching warmth into your thighs like some passive-aggressive campfire. Around you, the room hums with the sound of sandals scuffing, scrolls unrolling, and the occasional cough of an elderly senator trying to sound awake. The Senate is in session, technically. Emotionally, everyone's already halfway asleep. Someone on the far end starts speaking something about grain taxes in the provinces. You try to listen, you really do. But the speaker's voice drones like a particularly uninspired cicada. You blink. Once. Twice. It's like blinking with bricks tied to your eyelids. Each time they close, it takes a little more effort to reopen them. And then, there he is. Seated 2 rows ahead, slightly off to the left, resting back against a worn stone bench with the serene peace of a man who has never worried about missing anything important in a meeting. Senator Snorri. You've heard of him, of course. The sleeping senator. His real name might be Gaius something or other, but nobody remembers it because no one's ever heard him speak. He is ancient. Wrinkled like a prune someone left in a scroll case, but peaceful. Oh, so peaceful. His mouth is open slightly, his head tilted to the side, one hand limp on his lap, the other clutching a cup of watered-down wine he hasn't sipped since the meeting began. And you, bless your tired soul, you can't stop watching him. How does he do it? How does he just sleep through this? The speaker now is gesturing wildly, talking about the increased cost of shipping amphora filled with fish sauce. Fish sauce. And no one even blinks. But Snorri, he exhales gently, letting out a faint wheeze that you swear harmonizes perfectly with the tone of the room. You let your eyes close, just for a second, just to test it. Warm air seeps into your lungs, the marble cools slightly beneath you. You lean your head back against the pillar and imagine not the forum, not the shouting, not the scrolls or coins or politics, but cool wind over the Tiber and shade from fig trees. Then your seat creaks as you shift, startling yourself back awake. You peek at Snorri. He hasn't moved. Then suddenly you get it. This man is not lazy. He's a visionary. While others waste their lives debating toga dye regulation and basal import tariffs, he has mastered the art of true senatorial efficiency, showing up, saying nothing, sleeping deeply. You sigh, loud enough that a junior scribe turns to look at you. You give him a stern glare, as if to say, do not judge me, I'm studying the greats. The heat thickens. Someone opens a window, but it only lets in the distant smell of donkey dung from the streets. A pigeon flutters against the high window, then gives up, just like you're about to. Because there it is again, that heavy, velvet pull of sleep. Your eyelids droop. The speaker's voice now sounds like the ocean through a clay jar. You feel like your body is melting into the stone seat, the weight of the day pressing down in the nicest way possible. You catch a glimpse of Senator Snorri again, and you could swear, just for a second, that he winks at you. Or maybe his eye just twitched. Either way, you close your eyes again. This time, no guilt, no resistance. And somewhere in the warm buzz of half-formed thoughts, you think to yourself, maybe all great empires are built on the backs of a few good naps. You awaken, or maybe you never truly slept from that strange half-slumber where thoughts blur with dreams and reality feels like it's been gently simmering over low heat. The beat continues, unchanged, as if your moment of rest cost you nothing. Grain taxes have evolved into olive subsidies, and the speaker now brandishes a chart made of wax tablets, lifting them with the flair of someone who assumes people care. But but your eyes are not on him. No, you're watching the old man, Senator Snorri, who has shifted exactly 1 inch since last you checked. His head has tilted further, now resting against a carved eagle on the stone wall as though communing with it through sleep. There's a small string of drool stretching delicately from his bottom lip to the rim of his toga. It glistens, proudly. You don't know why this is so compelling. Perhaps it's the contrast. Around you, men fidget, cough, scribble, try to appear alert. But Snorri, he's achieved something transcendent. He sleeps not just during the meeting, he sleeps through the meeting. He's reached enlightenment, but with pillows made of hubris and old velvet. And as if on cue, a low, rattling sound rolls across the chamber. Snorri is snoring. It's not loud, it's not disruptive. In fact, it blends perfectly with the dry cadence of the speaker's voice, like a subtle tambourine in a symphony of bureaucracy. You glance around, no one reacts. No one dares. This is, after all, a man of tradition. You settle deeper into your seat, your knees sticking faintly to the stone. You'd fan yourself, but that would require motion. And the air is so still, so dense with the scent of old parchment and warm limestone, that moving feels disrespectful to the atmosphere of collective elegant inertia. You hear a whisper beside you, someone mentioning that Senator Snorri once napped through the entire consul election of 4048 BC. Supposedly, when the votes were tallied and a name read aloud, Snorri let out a snort so well-timed that it was recorded as official approval in the minutes. Of course, no one knows if that's true. As the Senate drones on, you begin to realize the history of this chamber is not written in speeches or scrolls, but in endurance. The ability to remain conscious, barely, through endless oration about things you'll forget the moment you step outside. And yet, this is how empires are run. Not through sword or chariot, but through tired men arguing the width of a road in distant Gaul. You squint toward the front of the hall. There, another senator is leaning forward, rubbing his temple. A younger one, still trying to participate. You pity him. His forehead is shiny with effort. Snorri shifts again, and a soft puff escapes him. It's like a lullaby. The speaker now is recounting an incident involving overtaxed merchants in Ostia. You catch the phrase, improper anchorage fees. You sigh involuntarily. Improper anchorage. It sounds like a metaphor for your life. Then something unexpected happens. Snorri stirs, not dramatically, no grand gesture, but his eyes blink open, slowly, like they're not entirely sure how to work. He lifts one brow, glances around the room as if evaluating the quality of the conversation, and then meets your gaze. For 1 golden second, his eyes lock onto yours. They are watery, yes, and slightly red-rimmed, but alert in a way you didn't expect. As if behind that dozing facade, a sharp observer has been quietly judging the world through half-closed lids. He holds up a single finger, a gesture both cryptic and oddly regal. Then his eyes roll shut and the snore returns, this time with a deeper resonance, a tone you could hum to. You glance around, almost expecting applause, but no one else seems to notice. And so you remain, half awake, half asleep, perched on your slowly warming bench, drifting somewhere between consciousness and the underworld of legislative monotony. The speaker begins citing scroll numbers. See Scroll 17, subsection Aurelia, paragraph 4. You wonder if that's a curse in disguise. Your stomach rumbles faintly. You forgot lunch, but food feels like a distant concern, something for men of action, not of thought, or naps. You let your head lean back again. The sound of Snorri's breathing lulls you, the steady rhythm echoing off dome stone. The man is a metronome of resistance, a defiant beacon in a sea of duty and pretense. And just before your eyes drift closed again, you swear you hear a faint chuckle coming from Snorri's direction, or maybe your own. You let it happen. Let sleep slip into the back of your thoughts like an overfed cat, because here, in the echoing heart of Rome, with its sandals and scrolls and ceremonial yawns, sleep isn't laziness, it's legacy. A blur of marble columns and the scent of old parchment, when a sudden hush settles over the chamber. Not a dramatic silence, but the kind that happens when everyone collectively realizes they've stopped pretending to care. Someone clears their throat. A meaningful pause. You tilt your head slightly, not enough to be obvious, but just enough to see that Senator Drusus, the skinny one with the bird-like neck, is preparing to speak. always the one to bring up infrastructure. Roads, aqueducts, bridges no one asked for. And yes, there it is. Aqueduct stress fractures. You sigh through your nose because, of course, as Drusus launches into his slow-motion panic about the declining quality of stone used in provincial aqueducts, you shift your gaze back towards Senator Snorri. He has not moved. Not once. He is now slumped a bit farther down, his spine melting into the backrest like hot wax. His mouth hangs open with a certain elegance, regal detachment. A pigeon lands just outside the tall window behind him and begins cooing, a duet with Snorri's nasal melody. Together, they form the ancient Roman ASMR soundtrack. You start to wonder how this man got here. Not here in the Senate exactly, but here, in this moment, this state of restful transcendence. Did he train for this? Were there secret sleep schools for senators who wanted to survive the long days of talk and toil? That's when a memory stirs, whispers you overheard once in the bathhouse. Something about how Snorri had once been an advisor to Julius Caesar himself, that he had traveled with Caesar through Gaul, seen battles, sketched crude maps on sheep hide, while rain poured over his helmet. But when asked later about the experience, he reportedly replied, "Very dim. Excellent for naps." Again, historians still debate if this is true. Some argue he was never in Gaul. Others say he was, but spent most of it bundled inside a supply tent, napping next to the sacks of barley. You smile at the thought, imagining Snorri surrounded by the chaos of Roman conquest, horns blaring, orders shouted, soldiers clanking, and there he is, wrapped in a blanket, muttering about drafty tents and missing pillows. Drusus, meanwhile, has unfurled a full scroll. The parchment is long, curling slightly at the edges, threatening to roll back into itself like a deflated pastry. He gestures furiously. If we do not reinforce the arches near timber, we may witness an event of structural calamity. You're impressed. Honestly, you didn't know calamity could sound so vague. Someone coughs behind you, a long, echoing cough, almost wistful. Across the room, another senator dips his fingers into a small bowl of water, then proceeds to stare at them, they mesmerized. You start to understand why this chamber feels less like a place of governance and more like a retirement villa with scrolls. And then it hits you. Rome isn't run on laws or legions. It's run on boredom. Carefully measured, lovingly distributed boredom. Enough to lull the sharpest minds into a dreamy haze of compliance. Snorri is not the outlier. He's the prototype. You feel the pull again, that slow, thick tide of fatigue that creeps into your bones like warm honey. Drusus is now reading rainfall statistics, possibly aloud to himself, because even he seems unsure who's listening. As your eyelids drift downward, you find yourself imagining that moment, years ago perhaps, when Snorri discovered his gift. A meeting, perhaps in a tent. Caesar pacing, others scribbling. And Snorri, legs crossed, arms folded, suddenly realizing that if he just leaned his head to the right, no one would bother him. From that day on, he embraced the art, and like any true Roman innovator, he perfected it. A new speaker rises, this one younger, red-cheeked, eager. He's trying to win favor, to stir the Senate. The Republic must restore faith in the Forum, he declares. He squinted. He's got too much energy. Dangerous energy, the kind that leads to actual change. But no one claps. You hear the pigeon again. Still there, just behind Snorri. Maybe they're friends. And then, a marvel. Snorri, without opening his eyes, lifts one hand, slowly, deliberately. He adjusts the edge of his toga over his knee. A minor act, but in this setting it feels like a revolution. The chamber watches in stunned silence, unsure what to make of it. The young speaker hesitates. Snorri lets out a single breath, long, slow, purposeful, and just like that, the moment dies. The energy collapses. The young senator deflates ever so slightly and sits down again. The chamber returns to its default mode, dignified entropy. And you begin to realize something beautiful. Snorri isn't asleep because he's tired. He's asleep because it works. Like a monk who knows that silence carries more power than 1,000 speeches, he lets the world rush by undisturbed while he maintains the stillness that no one dares interrupt. Not out of fear, but respect. Or maybe envy. The speaker clears his throat again. Next item, the grain surplus forecast. You lean back, the stone cool on your shoulders, your heartbeat matching Snorri's breathing rhythm. You begin to understand, to truly feel it. This is how Rome endures, not through conquest or ambition, but through the quiet art of outlasting the noise. flutter open just in time to hear someone say budgetary proposal, and you immediately regret waking up. The chamber has grown even warmer somehow. The air hangs heavy with the breath of tired men and the slow decay of decorative laurel leaves wilting in their stone urns. You shift slightly in your seat and the stone bench groans beneath you like it too is tired of being here. Across the hall, the young clerk is attempting to unroll a scroll that's too long for the desk. The end curls back like an annoyed cat's tail. Meanwhile, an older senator with the posture of a question mark squints at a pile of wax tablets as if hoping they'll burst into flames and excuse him from further participation. But Snorri, unmoved. The man sits exactly as before, spine curved like the lowercase letter C, head propped gently against the wall, mouth ajar. If he were any more relaxed, he'd slip through the floor, and then, out of nowhere, he exhales with such a slow nasal hum that the entire left side of the chamber turns to glance. No one says a word, because everyone knows Snorri is dreaming. You wonder what his dreams are like, surely not of battles or banquets. No, his dreams must be mild, pleasantly uneventful. Fields of unfiled paperwork stretching to the horizon, bowls of cold lentils, a long, uninterrupted nap on the deck of a ship that never docks. But today, Snorri begins to murmur. At first, it's hard to tell if it's intentional, a breathy whisper, the kind that sounds like it might just be wind. But then, he says a name, Julius. A few heads turn. You lean forward. He continues. Never showed up. Told at noon. You blink. Wait, what? The room stills and someone drops a stylus. You strain to hear. Snorri shifts slightly, lips smacking together. And the fish stew. Regret that. And then silence again. You lean back, heart oddly lifted. Was that a confession? A memory? Did Senator Snorri just recall a meeting with Julius Caesar himself and sleep through it? It's absurd, of course. But then again, is it? This is Rome, the center of 1,000 contradictions, where power comes in marble and boredom wears a toga. If anyone were to accidentally sleep through history, it would be Snorri. You remember vaguely something from the library, an account from a young senator claiming that during a particularly heated Senate debate on war funding, Snorri had not only slept through the vote, but had been counted twice. Once for his body being present, and again when his snores timed perfectly with a shouted "I." Historians still debate this. The speaker drones on about the urban maintenance budget. Repaving of Via Flaminia required due to chariot wheel erosion. His voice is the sound equivalent of drying clay. You think about leaving your body, you glance again at Snorri. You start to notice something peculiar. Every time a particularly tedious subject arises, he seems to sink deeper, like his body senses boredom on a cellular level. He has somehow synced his nervous system to the tedium of Rome, and that's when it happens. The senior senator next to him leans over, cautiously, and nudges Snorri's shoulder with a single finger. A tiny poke, like one might give a loaf of bread to see if it's done baking. Snorri's head rolls slightly, then rights itself, and then, impossibly, he speaks. Tell them the olives were fine. The voice is dry, low, like the crackling of old papyrus. The senior senator nods, says nothing, and the budget discussion moves on. You stare in disbelief. Snorri just contributed. From within a nap, your mind reels. You're not sure what's more confusing, the fact that he spoke, or that everyone treated it like a valid policy position. Maybe he's always been doing this, a quiet manipulator of events, speaking only in half-dreams, yet guiding the course of debates like a somnambulant oracle. It would explain so much. Why no one wakes him, why no one dares move his seat, why even the most arrogant young tribunes seem to tiptoe near him. He isn't an old man who naps through history. He is history. Dormant. Slow burning. A low murmur of agreement passes through the room. Yes, the olives were fine. Good year. Reasonable export ratio. The debate moves on. The discussion on aqueduct maintenance is tabled, and Snorri, back in the deep, his chest rises and falls like a gentle tide, and his eyelids flutter once more as if to say, "You see, this is how you endure the empire." You look down at your own scroll. Still blank. You could write something, record the events of the day, but instead, you draw a small crude picture of a pillow. Snorri murmurs again, just one word this time, lunch. And somehow the whole room hears it, and nods. The meeting is quietly adjourned. No official declaration, just a shared understanding. The session had gone on long enough. Snorri had declared it so. You stand, stretch, and follow the slow procession of As you pass Snorri's bench, you glance down. He doesn't move, but his fingers twitch ever so slightly, like he's dreaming of olives again. And you smile, because you know deep down, tomorrow it all begins again, and Snorri will still be here, leading in his own way, one nap at a time. You return the next day, not because you're obligated, though technically attendance is mandatory, but because you're curious now. You want to see if it was a fluke, if Snorri's dream muttering actually influenced policy, or if your heat-stunned brain had simply turned senatorial snoring into prophecy. The chamber is the same, of course, it's always the same. Hot and slow, smelling faintly of wet limestone and roasted onions from the vendor that insists on setting up just outside the forum gates. You step inside the Curia Julia, your sandals brushing across the mosaic floor, already half resenting the seat that awaits you. The stone has retained yesterday's sorrow. But today, something's different. There's a buzz in the air. Not excitement. Rome doesn't do excitement in the Senate, but a sort of awkward anticipation. Like the kind of energy you feel when someone sneezes during a eulogy, and almost gasp. And there, sitting proudly, unchanged, unmoved, eternal, is Snorri. He is once again in his sacred seat. His shoulders slouched, his toga gathered around him like a fog of linen. His head nods slightly to the rhythm of absolutely nothing. You sit down a few seats away and lean toward a fellow senator, trying not to look too interested. "What's going on?" you murmur. The man shrugs. "Emergency session. Something about a gladiator riot near the Suburra." You blink. A gladiator riot. Apparently several underpaid fighters got into a disagreement over meal portions. One group demanded double olives. Someone insulted someone else's trident. One thing led to another, and now half the taverns near Aventine Hill are missing doors. You try to picture that. Muscled warriors hurling furniture at tax collectors. It's the most stimulating mental image you've had in days. And still, Snorri sleeps. The speaker begins. "Senators, we are gathered to address an issue of grave concern." Snorri exhales audibly, a fluttery breath that carries across the stone walls like a ghost sighing through papyrus. The speaker hesitates. You see it happen. A brief flicker of uncertainty. Everyone in the room watches Snorri, waiting, because this is now a thing. And sure enough, he stirs. Just a little. His chin tilts, his lips part, and then softly, "Check the lentils." Murmurs ripple through the chamber. What lentils? What does that mean? And yet, no one questions it. Someone scribbles it down as an official recommendation. You hear another senator whisper, "Could be code for investigate supplies." Another says, "It's metaphorical, clearly. Lentils mean discipline." They all nod like this makes perfect sense. You, meanwhile, are still trying to understand how a man who hasn't finished a sentence in 40 years has become the de facto voice of reason. The debate rolls on. A proposal is made to assign more grain to the gladiator quarters. Someone else suggests reducing wine rations. This prompts an argument about the last time wine was reduced, and a senator shouts, "And we saw where that got us." You don't know what he means. Snorri shifts again, making a low, rumbling noise in his throat. Everyone freezes. He mutters something that sounds like, "Don't trust the guy with the blue feather." And the chamber turns to identify which senator owns the questionable plume. It's Tribune Marcellus. Poor man. He's wearing a perfectly respectable feather, blue-dyed goose, nothing fancy. But now 3 senators have moved a seat away from him, just in case. It dawns on you that Snorri isn't just napping. He's narrating, in his own drowsy, incomprehensible way. He's guiding the Republic with cryptic bedtime whispers and dream logic. And what's worse, it works. Because nobody wants to be the one who ignores the murmurings of a man who's outlived 9 emperors, 5 plagues, and 1 incident involving a cursed coin and a goat. No one dares contradict the oracle of unconsciousness. You lean back in your seat. You're not even pretending to follow the discussion now. Someone is talking about rebuilding the bathhouse steps. Another one's funding to paint inspirational frescoes near the prisons. Meanwhile, Snorri is dreaming of lentils and suspicious birds. And Rome keeps running. You wonder if maybe this is Rome's true genius. Not war or roads or law, but institutionalized napping. The kind of bureaucratic hypnosis where nothing ever moves too fast and all crises can be softened with a well-timed dose. The discussion meets the circle. As always, proposals are repeated, questions rephrased. Someone accidentally quotes the same scroll soup, and the voices begin to blur together. Snorri hums, deep, content, and you close your eyes. You let the warmth wrap around you. Let the scent of old scrolls and sandalwood wax dull your thoughts. Your last clear images of Snorri, head tilted slightly, fingers twitching like he's orchestrating a slow, sleepy symphony no one else hears. And right before your thoughts melt into dreams, you realize maybe this is the real lesson of power. You don't always need to speak to be heard. Sometimes you just need to nap loud enough. By now, the rhythm of it all has become oddly comforting. The warm stone under your legs, the slow scrape of sandals across marble, the way the speaker's voice lifts ever so slightly when quoting something from the honorable records of Scipio, only to be met with the same glazed-over expressions as always. But today you walk into the Senate chamber already half asleep, not from exhaustion but from familiarity. You've begun syncing your body clock to Snorri's snore cycles. The man is a human metronome. You're not the only one either. Some senators now show up with small folded cushions. One even brings a padded footstool. It squeaks when he sits. The mood is less imperial government, more retirement library waiting for soup. You settle into your usual seat and glance around. There he is, of course, Senator Snorri, Emperor of the unconscious, unmoved by time or topic. His hands are crossed over his stomach today, a position of dignified surrender. He looks like a man halfway through a dream about owning slightly more comfortable sandals. Today's session opens with the most mind-numbing topic to date, comb regulation. Yes, wooden combs, specifically the legality of selling them with 3 missing teeth. You think they're joking at first. They are not. Apparently, an entire merchant district has broken into heated arguments over what constitutes a functional grooming implement. A junior magistrate from the Portuguese district proposes banning combs with less than 80% of their teeth. Another insists it's a slippery slope, and that next people will be selling hats with no top. You fight the urge to scream into your toga, but Snorri, he's gone deep. His head tilts further today, almost comically, like someone hung him slightly crooked on the wall. His left sandal has fallen off. A mouse sniffs it cautiously. No one reacts. Mice in the chamber are as old as the mosaics. The speaker drones on. Whereas a comb with missing structure may injure the scalp, and whereas injury to the scalp may incite unrest among citizens, you lose the thread entirely. Instead, you watch Snorri. His fingers twitch slightly. Some say he plays a harp in his sleep. Others believe he's reenacting old gladiator battles in slow motion. You prefer to think he's trying to count how many senators are currently not awake. You include yourself in that tally. Then suddenly, he speaks. Not loudly, not clearly, but undeniably. He says, "Don't trust a man who oils both sides of the calm." Everyone freezes. The speaker lowers his scroll. What? What does that mean? Someone whispers. The man next to you frowns deeply, as if Snorri just revealed a profound truth hidden in the core of Roman identity. Double oiling suggests duplicity, he says. He plays both sides. Heads nod around the room. Even the mouse near Snorri's sandal pauses, as if reflecting. The speaker clears his throat. Very well. Motion to limit oiling to single-side treatment. Seconded. Someone calls, passed unanimously. Just like that, a law is born. Snorri shifts, exhales through his nose, and returns to the great beyond. And you're not even surprised anymore. If anything, you're impressed. You begin to wonder if all the great laws of the past were born from such sleepy mutterings. Perhaps the 12 tables were really the 11, until someone dozed off and added a doodle that became binding statute. Perhaps Cicero once fell asleep and woke to find he'd accidentally drafted a speech on moral philosophy with his cheek pressed to the inkstone. You glance around. Everyone has accepted it. Snorri is not questioned. Snorri is not challenged. Snorri is interpreted. A senator across the chamber now has a designated Snorri recorder. A young scribe sits beside him with a wax tablet, ready to transcribe every sleep whisper, every foot twitch, every eyebrow lift. The man treats it like scripture. He calls it the dozing decrees, and it's catching on. Another senator has begun humming softly during meetings, trying to match Snorri's breathing rhythm. One claims he can hear patterns in it. Warnings, predictions, he whispers. The man snorted dactylic hexameter yesterday, and maybe he did. The day winds on. The comb debate ends. A new topic arises. Grain shipments miscounted at Ostia. You hear phrases like sap discrepancy and dock manifest falsification. Snorri releases a low snore, gentle, steady, and the speaker immediately halts. We will table this discussion until clearer omens arise. You're starting to see it clearly now. Snorri is Rome's unofficial barometer, not of truth or virtue, but of threshold. If he sleeps through it, it's fine. If he stirs, Rome listens. And if he speaks, the Republic rewrites its calendar. You close your eyes again, and this time you don't even pretend to listen. You let the words of the Senate blur into wind, your body warm and heavy, and your thoughts dissolving. Just before you drift off, you think you hear Snorri mumble, "Don't name the street after yourself, that's how curses begin." And honestly, you believe him. The sun cuts through the high Senate windows today like it's been weaponized. Sharp beams of heat lance across the chamber floor, illuminating floating motes of dust and the occasional drifting feather from some unlucky pigeon who mistook the curia for a breezy colonnade. You enter slower than usual, not from fatigue, though that's always there, but from something else. Reverence, curiosity, the same way one might tiptoe into a temple, unsure whether to pray or just lie down in the cool shade. You take your seat. You don't bother to unroll your scroll. No one does anymore, unless Snorri moves. And there he is, of course, still in his usual spot, although today he's brought something with him. A small, square cushion, faded crimson, stitched with a pattern so worn it could be grapes, or maybe disgruntled turtles. He sets it behind his back with a slow, ritual-like care, adjusts his posture with the exaggerated patience of a man who has nothing to prove, then folds his arms across his belly and exhales. A long, satisfying breath that announces without question, "I am no longer among you." The meeting begins. Again. Today's topic, the alarming number of poorly constructed roadside statues in the provinces. Apparently, a merchant town near Hispania erected a marble bust of Jupiter that crumbled in under a week. A debate whether to standardize nose proportions in statuary because some believe longer noses weather better in coastal climates. You think about running, instead you look at Snorri, already gone. But here's the thing, you're starting to understand his system. The deeper the nonsense, the deeper the sleep. Yesterday, combs. Today, statue noses. You'd be surprised if he didn't fall into some kind of subterranean REM state by midday. And yet, 15 minutes in, Snorri makes a sound. Not a snore, not a whisper, a giggle. Soft, breathy, unmistakable. Heads turn. You're not sure whether to feel blessed or deeply cursed. And then he mutters, "They tried to measure noses once, started a war." The chamber freezes, the speaker stammers. One senator audibly gasps and drops his stylus. Do we have records of this?" someone asks. No one answers, because now everyone's brain is aflame with imagined history. Secret nose wars, clashes over nostril angles, unsanctioned statues in the night. You look around and see the look on everyone's faces. They believe him. Someone scribbles in the margins of a scroll. Note to review the first nasal conflict of 172 BCE. Citation, Snorri, dreaming. The debate shifts. Suddenly, it's not about nose size, but how to avoid repeating ancient mistakes. The motion to regulate proportions is dropped. Instead, they pass a law forbidding further discussions of statues until new omens arise. And Snorri, still sleeping. He has no idea what he's done. Or maybe he does. Maybe this is part of the plan. That's the most unsettling part. You don't know where the dream ends and the influence begins. The rest of the session blurs. Someone mentions that a bridge in Cisalpine Gaul has a faint squeak. Another proposes that it might be haunted. This leads to a minor 40-minute sidebar on bridge exorcisms, which includes the phrase, "We must not allow demonic echoes to delay merchant traffic." Snorri stirs, shifts his cushion, mumbles, "Put salt on the west side, ghosts hate afternoon." That becomes official advice. Salt is ordered, priest summoned. You feel yourself drifting again, not from fatigue exactly, but from the weightlessness of it all. Nothing feels urgent anymore. Not in a room where laws are born from dream fragments and pillow shuffles. And maybe that's how Rome survives. Not through action, but through the elegant suspension of urgency. A soft rumble rolls through the room. Snorri's stomach, perhaps, or his soul. And just before the chamber is adjourned for the day, he utters one final phrase. "If a statue's nose falls off, let it be." The meeting ends immediately. The motion is passed. Rome does not question its oracle. You rise with the others, shoulders loose, head buzzing with the comfort of unearned productivity. You accomplish nothing. staircase. As you pass Snorri's bench, you pause. The cushion beneath him shifts slightly. You think about how much history has passed through this place, and how much of it Snorri has missed and still somehow directed. You leave the chamber, stepping back into the heat of the forum, thinking not about laws or marble or even noses, but about the strange, subtle power of being still. And just before the door closes behind you, you hear one last whisper float from Snorri's corner. Tomorrow, fewer birds. Whatever that means, you write it down, just in case. Next morning, Rome greets you with a sky as gray as amphora dust and the kind of chill that clings just beneath your toga. Annoying, but not enough to justify another layer. The streets are sluggish, almost contemplative. Even the vendors seem quieter, calling out about dates and vinegar with a sense of polite detachment, as if shouting would somehow disrupt the delicate equilibrium of the day. You arrive at the Curia Julia with a strange sense of anticipation, not for the topics, those are never the draw, but for the ongoing mystery that is Senator Snorri. You're starting to track him, the way augurs read birds, his patterns, his hums, the angle of his neck when his nap reaches full depth. You're not the only one either. There's a quiet clamor around him now, respectful, cautious. A few senators have taken to sitting closer. One even brings fruit, figs, softly wrinkled and sweet, which he leaves discreetly on the stone beside Snorri like offerings to a sleeping deity. They're never eaten, but they disappear. You take your seat. There's a scroll on your bench today, already opened. The topic: proposal to regulate the feeding of foreign birds. You blink at it slowly. Apparently the pigeons, sparrows, and that one angry goose near the Senate fountain have become a public order concern. Specifically, they're stealing bread, swooping into meetings, and pooping on statues of former consuls with concerning regularity. There's talk of designated bird feeding hours, a special seed blend. One suggestion even recommends tiny avian sandals to reduce talon damage on mosaic floors. No one questions that suggestion, but here's where things get interesting. At the top of the scroll, scribbled hastily in red ink, are the words "Seed Snorri, yesterday, fewer birds." You stare at the sentence, that whisper, that dreamy, nonsensical phrase that made it onto official record, and now the Roman Senate is preparing legislation against birds. You glance over. There he is, Snorri. Still, his cushion now has a second cushion on top of it. He's layered, pillow upon pillow. He looks like the ghost of a very well-rested turtle. His eyes are closed, of course, and one sandal has once again made its way halfway across the floor. No one dares move it. The meeting begins. Esteemed colleagues, the speaker drones, we must address the avian incursion. You press your knuckles to your temple to stifle the rising scream. There is discussion of wingspans, pecking behavior. Someone proposes a wing tax. Another suggests sending a diplomatic envoy to the temple of Juno on account of her sacred peacocks. A third senator insists the birds are an omen and shouldn't be touched at all. And then it happens. Snorri stirs. A slow, groggy head roll. That's like a cat adjusting its sleep angle on a sun-warmed wall. You freeze. Everyone freezes. He shifts in his seat, fingers flexing gently in the air, as though feeling for an invisible loaf of bread. And then clearly, unmistakably, he mutters, "Geese are spies." It is not a question, it is not a joke, it is truth. A beat of stunned silence, then chaos. What did he say? Geese. Spies. One senator drops his cup. Another frantically cross-references a prophecy scroll. Someone starts recounting the story of the sacred geese of Juno who once saved the capital from a Gallic invasion by honking at the intruders. "Oh gods," a voice says, "they warned us before. They might again." Within minutes, a motion is passed. All geese near Senate property must be observed daily and reported on weekly. The second motion follows. No goose shall be harmed without formal divination. Both pass unanimously. Snorri exhales. The side of his lip twitches upward, a hint of a smirk. You're not sure, but you're amazed. Once again, he's taken a trivial debate and turned it into divine strategy through sleep. And now Rome has a goose surveillance policy. You rest your chin on your hand. Your scroll is untouched. A piece of parchment flutters from the window, caught by the wind, then lands gently on Snorri's foot. He doesn't move. Of course, you begin to wonder how much of Roman policy is just sleepy nonsense, given shape by overthinkers. Maybe the greatness of Rome isn't in its laws or legions. Maybe it's in its capacity to believe things said while unconscious. oddly profound. Fewer birds, he'd said, and now pigeons tremble in alleys while geese are being tracked like winged diplomats. Snorri shifts again. This time he whispers, "Never trust a bird that walks too quietly." The scribe near you nods solemnly and writes it down. And that's it. The meeting's done. No vote is called. No conclusion declared. But somehow everyone stands, brushes off their togas, and files out like they've just heard a sermon from Jupiter himself. You linger a moment, looking back at Snorri, enthroned on pillows, surrounded by crumbs of baked history. As you exit, the wind picks up again, and in the courtyard you see a goose standing near the statue of Cicero. Still, watching. It does not blink. You nod respectfully, just in case. It's raining today. Not the dramatic thunder and lightning kind of Roman rain that inspires poets and panic, but a slow whispering drizzle that coats the stone streets in a slick sheen and dampens everything it touches. The kind of rain that makes marble sweat and togas cling in all the wrong places. You arrive at the curia, Julia already mildly irritated, your sandals squeaking like guilty thieves with every step. Inside, the chamber is dimmer than usual. The torches smoke, reluctant in the moisture. The benches are cold and slightly tacky. Everyone smells like soggy wool and yesterday's regret. You take your seat. It squelches. Snorri is already there, not just present, prepared, wrapped in a heavier toga today, thick and worn, the color of old ashes. His sandals have been removed and carefully placed beside him, facing east. And most curiously, there is a small clay cup of steaming liquid next to him. No one dares ask what it is. Some believe it's wine, others whisper it's pigeon broth. A few claim it's the distilled tears of junior scribes. Snorri does not sip. He simply inhales it, occasionally, with the calm focus of a man who's already deep in phase 2 nap readiness. Today's meeting, the sewer reports, specifically complaints from various districts about overflow, poor maintenance, suspicious smells, and, yes, alleged curses etched into the stone near the Cloaca Maxima. You slump against the wall, eyes half-lidded. A senator from the Aventine launches into an emotional recounting of how his bathhouse now smells like the underworld during a garlic festival. Another insists that improper drainage is directly linked to civic unrest. A third warns of rats too large to be considered natural. You're halfway through imagining what a cursed rat looks like when it happens. Snorri coughs. Just once, but the sound is rich, resonant, like a well-aged scroll being slowly unrolled in a quiet library. The chamber freezes, everyone waits, and then, eyes still closed, Snorri speaks. The problem is the third arch. A senator blinks. What third arch? Snorri continues, barely above a whisper. Left side, faces east. It hums. Silence, utter silence. The speaker stares at the scroll in his hands as if hoping it will explain itself. A young architect near the rear rises slowly and clears his throat. Actually, there is a third arch, a smaller one. Most overlook it. He hesitates. I have heard it hum. Thought it was in my head. Gasps. Audible gasps. You glance around. Everyone is now staring at the poor man like he's just revealed his family owns a minotaur. Snorri says no more. He slouches gently, hands folded over his stomach, brows softening as if soothed by having released this secret. And just like that, the meeting shifts. The entire sewer discussion is reframed around this humming arch. The speaker declares it a potential spiritual hotspot. A priest is summoned for a future blessing. The Senate authorizes the construction of a protective awning over the arch so it may hum in peace. You sit there, stunned. What just happened? Snorri coughed, and now Rome's sewer system is being redesigned around musical masonry. One senator proposes that we create a new office, Praetor Coalis, to oversee spiritual sewer affairs. Another wants to mint a coin with the image of the arch on it. A third simply says Snorri hears what we ignore. You don't disagree. The meeting drifts into further absurdity. The idea of installing waterproof wax tablets in the sewer is proposed so that rats, if literate, might file complaints. A senator suggests funding be set aside for training sewer eels to detect curses. Snorri remains still. You realize something profound. It's not just what he says, it's what he doesn't say. His silence is a kind of editing, a rejection of nonsense without needing to raise a hand. When he speaks, it matters. When he doesn't, it's a verdict. The rain continues outside. You hear it now, pattering against the high windows, blending with the soft echo of sandals and the hum of wax seals being pressed. And then, writes it down without question. A policy is drafted on the spot, a small budget allocation for rodentic negotiations. The speaker announces that tomorrow's session will include rat handling protocols and further interpretations of Snorri's garlic doctrine. You stand slowly, head spinning. You came here to sit through sewer reports. Instead, you leave wondering what rats know, and whether garlic is really just seasoning or a key to unlocking the whispers beneath Rome. As you step into the drizzle, the streets seem quieter than before. Even the puddles feel like they're listening. The sun is back, reluctantly. It brushes through the morning haze like a half-hearted apology, drying yesterday's rain in uneven patches across the forum. Marble steps still shine with a dull, wet sheen, and here and there puddles cling stubbornly to the corners, like forgotten senators refusing to leave after adjournment. You walk the familiar path toward the Curia Julia, sandals squelching just a little, toga already beginning to stick to your back. There's a palpable mood in the air, anticipation, not the tense kind you get before a war vote or a tax hike, but the quieter, more ridiculous kind that comes when everyone's pretending they don't want something insane to happen, but they really, really do. Inside the chamber, the benches are full. Even the senators who usually skip niche discussions are here, faces wide-eyed with barely contained glee. Today's topic, rat intelligence. Specifically, whether the rodents of Rome possess organized societal behaviors, and if they are in fact withholding secrets from the Senate. You don't even try to hide your smile, you just sit down and wait. Snorri is already present, and when you see him, you know something's coming. He's wearing a new toga today. Well, new in the sense that it looks freshly dusted, but not exactly clean. It's lined with a dark border. Mourning, or maybe it's just a burnt wine stain that no one dared clean. More notably, there's a clove of garlic tied to his belt with a string. Just one, dangling, like a charm or a warning. The chamber is completely silent as the speaker clears his throat. Honorable senators, as inspired by the words of the esteemed Snorri yesterday, the rats know secrets. Feed them garlic. We have gathered to consider appropriate protocols for interspecies diplomacy. Someone behind you coughs, badly stifling a laugh. The young senator rises to present findings. Apparently, several servants were dispatched late last night to various sewer inlets armed with cloves, breadcrumbs, and softly murmured compliments. They report that the rats accepted the garlic. In some cases, carried it away deliberately. One servant claims a rat nodded at him. Another insists she heard one say, "Chow," but no one includes that in the minutes. Snorri shifts slightly. It's subtle, a small adjustment in his cushion, a repositioning of one sandal that makes a soft scraping sound against the stone floor. But to this room, tuned now like a cult awaiting a prophecy, it's as loud as a declaration from the Capitoline Hill. The speaker immediately pauses. Every senator turns to look at the oracle of the obvious, the napper of nations. Snorri's eyes remain closed. He lifts one hand just a few inches, then lets it fall limply back into his lap like a dropped fig. And then, as if reading from a scroll only he can see, he mutters, "Never trust a rat with dry fur, that's it." Just that. You glance around. A senator from the Aventine gasps. Another scratches something frantically onto a wax tablet. The young rat liaison delegate, recently appointed this very morning, rises unprompted. Clearly, the dry-furred rats are the scouts. He says gravely, "The damn ones are just traveling. We must recalibrate our approach." A murmur of agreement ripples through the benches. Someone suggests bringing bowls of water to flush out the dry-furred infiltrators. Another proposes only feeding rats during humid hours. You say nothing. Not because you agree, but because you're too busy watching Snorri reposition a fig that has rolled too close to his sandal with his toe. He doesn't open his eyes, he just gently, thus deliberately, nudges it back into alignment with the edge of his mat. This is power now. You're watching a man who controls Roman infrastructure with a toe. The discussion veers wildly. One senator insists rats may be communicating in scratches on tunnel walls. Rudimentary etch script, he calls it. Another suggests hiring a team of scribes to live in the sewer for a lunar cycle and report back with dream journal-style entries. Someone proposes building tiny amphitheaters underground to gain the rats' trust through cultural outreach. It spirals, as always, and Snorri sleeps. Or seems to. Every so often he exhales in that signature way. The long, hallowed breath of someone far too experienced in legislative nonsense to ever let it reach him. You glance up at the bronze bust of Romulus behind the speaker's seat. The eyes are cold. Judging, you imagine even Romulus himself would have walked out of this meeting by now, shaking his head and muttering something about, "This is why I stopped showing up." The young senator who brought the garlic yesterday stands to speak. He's earnest, a little damp, clearly not slept. "We believe the rats are avoiding cursed zones," he begins, holding up a tiny carved token. "So we've begun placing garlic near suspected curse clusters to see if they hesitate." Another senator leans forward, and they hesitate. Gasps audible again. Someone whispers confirmation of curse recognition. Another scribbles furiously, "Must reevaluate rat-based theology." And then you hear it. A snore. A true one. Not a breath. Not a sigh. A rolling, airy exhale with just enough nasal whistle to suggest snoring has reached optimal nap velocity. The chamber stills again. You all listen to the pattern. 3 seconds of inhale. A pause. A soft exhale that somehow sounds like the word "why." The speaker looks at his scroll. He hesitates. And then, this might be the most impressive thing you've seen all month, he changes the agenda. "Esteemed colleagues," he says, "perhaps we should give the matter time. Let the garlic rest. Let the rats respond." Unbelievable. Snorri's nap ends the meeting. No formal call, no debate. Just the acoustics of sleep guiding imperial policy. You rise with the others, brain halfway to boiling. The logic left hours ago replaced by something far older. The willingness to believe anything said with enough stillness. As you pass Snorri's bench, you pause. For once his eye flutters open. Just one. Bloodshot, yes, slightly unfocused, but undeniably awake. He looks at you and says in a voice lower than thunder, but heavier than truth, "It's not about the rats." You freeze. Then what is it? He blinks, his lips part again, sheds about the tunnels, then the eye closes, the hand drapes, the nap resumes, and suddenly, you get it. The rats were never the story, they were the whisper. They're the footnote, the tunnels, they go everywhere. You walk out of the chamber in a daze, eyes tracking every crack in the paving stones, every creep, every opening, because now you know, Rome doesn't run on scrolls, it runs on what's beneath them. The next day, the chamber feels colder. Not metaphorically, literally. The floor is damp underfoot, the air carries a faint mineral tang, and the torches flicker like they're nervous. A few senators huddle into their togas muttering about drafty bricks and unnatural breezes. One sneezes into his scroll and pretends it didn't happen. You enter quietly. Something about the air makes you do that. It presses gently against your chest, not enough to alarm you, but just enough to remind you that you are inside something much older than you. Snorri is already in his place, but he's done something unexpected. He has turned slightly, just a few degrees, but instead of facing the center of the chamber like always, he's now angled toward the eastern wall, not looking at anything in particular, just listening. Everyone notices. No one mentions it. The meeting begins with the usual formalities, but the speaker skips the ritual prayer to the genius of the Senate. Either he forgot or no one wanted to hear their own voice echo in this new, slightly haunted air. Today's topic, initial findings from the tunnels. Yes, they sent scouts, 3 junior scribes, 2 torchbearers, 1 goat. The first report is vague. They describe narrow paths, ancient markings, damp walls, a consistent slope downward. The goat reportedly refused to proceed past a cold spot. The second report is worse. The scribes got turned around, found themselves in a loop. Same hallway, same broken urn, over and over. One swears they passed a wall that whispered, "Turn back," though that may have been the torchbearer with bronchitis. But the third report reads slowly, cautiously, mentions something different. A symbol carved into the stone. 5 lines, branching, spiraling inward, familiar. You shift in your seat, your thoughts snapping back to Snorri's cushion. The one with the strange, meaningless map embroidered into the fabric. You realize it wasn't meaningless. They found his dream. In the wall, the room goes still, and Snorri, still silent, still facing east, but now you notice something else. A line of salt around the legs of his bench. Just a faint dusting. Someone did it deliberately. You don't know why that makes your heart beat faster, but it does. The speaker fumbles over his next words. There is discussion of whether to proceed deeper. A senator with ink-stained hands rises. "If we do, we must be guided." Another agrees. analysis, Snorri opens one eye, just one, and whispers, "They were digging towards silence." The words land like a drop amphora. What does that mean? Is it a warning, a direction, a memory, or all three? A low, confused murmur ripples across the floor. Who were they? Silence. Do you dig towards silence or fall into it? Snorri says nothing more. He lets his eye close again, tilts his head slightly back, and resumes the sacred ritual of senatorial unconsciousness. The speaker clears his throat. "Very well, we will convene a subcommittee to interpret the phrase." You stifle a cough. A subcommittee, of course. Rome's eternal answer to everything unanswerable. You watch as a young scribe is assigned to record all future Snorri utterances as Class A omens. He looks terrified. Rightly so. The rest of the session devolves into wild speculation. Some want to dig toward the symbol. Others insist they cover it up. A fringe group proposes building a small shrine around it and letting it dream with us. You tune it out because something else has caught your attention. At the base of the eastern wall, where Snorri is now vaguely pointed, you notice a dark patch of stone. Duller than the rest, slightly convex. A different echo when the wind brushes across it. And is that a faint breeze? You feel it. Cool, barely there. Like a breath exhaled centuries ago. You glance at Snorri again. His fingers twitch once, then still. The meeting adjourns. No formal vote. No policy passed. Just quiet dispersal. As you rise to leave, you pass his bench again. And there, tucked beneath it, partially hidden beneath the cushion, you see something strange. A small, folded cloth map drawn in charcoal. Newer than the cushion embroidery, and it's unfinished. Just like the parchment yesterday, the spiral symbol appears in the center, but this time there's a word beside it smudged, nearly illegible, but you can just make it out. Below. You look up. Snorri's breathing deepens. Rhythmic. Dreaming again, or remembering. That night, you barely sleep. Not because of the chill that settled over the city, though it feels like even the bricks are shivering now, but because your mind won't stop tracing lines on an invisible map. You dream of spirals, of tunnels with no walls, of footsteps echoing too long in corridors that shouldn't exist. When you wake, it's still dark. You don't remember falling asleep. By the time you arrive at the Curia Julia, the sun is only just beginning to pour across the rooftops, but you're not early, because Snorri is already there. He's always already there now. He sits slightly farther back than usual today, almost hidden in the curve of a pillar, as if trying to tuck himself into the architecture. His toga is heavier, pulled up loosely over his head. The salt ring around his bench has been redrawn thicker this time. Someone added a single line cutting through the center. You wonder if it means do not enter or too late. The chamber fills more slowly than usual. The noise is quieter, not hushed out of respect, but out of a shared tension, like a family gathering after someone dreams of blood. The scrolls for the day are unopened. The agenda posted at the door simply reads, "Tunnel silence. Session open to interpretation. Interpretation. Rome's favorite sport." The first speaker rises, eyes already bloodshot from either candlelight study or tunnel exposure. He says nothing for a full minute, then he begins. The symbols continue. He unrolls a wax tablet and displays a crude rubbing of a new carving. Another spiral, this time interlocked with a second spiral, like two hands gripping each other by the wrists. There are no tool marks, he adds. No chisel, no hammer. The stone is smooth. Someone coughs. Another senator leans forward. Was there a sound? The speaker hesitates. Only less sound, like it took something away from the space around it. You don't fully understand what that means. You don't need to. Because just then, Snorri moves. He leans slightly forward, his hands twitching again in that unsettling rhythm, like knocking or drumming or maybe remembering. And then he speaks. A full sentence. Not a mutter. Not a whisper. A sentence. There are tunnels that were never built, only uncovered. No one breathes. You hear someone drop their scroll behind you. No one picks it up. The speaker opens his mouth, closes it again. Snorri does not elaborate. He shifts backward into the stone, sighs through his nose, and resumes his rest, as if he hasn't just torn a hole in everyone's understanding of reality. The senators murmur. A few stand as though ready to leave, but none of them do. They just hover, afraid to stay, more afraid to go. Someone, emboldened by either madness or caffeine, says, if the tunnels weren't built, then who put them there? A long pause. pause. Snorri doesn't answer. But the eastern wall creaks just once, and somehow everyone hears it. You try to ground yourself. You think, this is a city of brick and water. This is a meeting of old men in expensive robes. This is not a haunted well of forgotten things. And yet you glance toward the pillar behind Snorri and see it. The spiral. Someone has carved it into the stone. Fresh, not deep, but deliberate, smooth, damp at the edges, as if the wall itself has begun remembering things it shouldn't. The younger senator panics. I don't think we should be meeting here anymore. Another agrees. We should reconvene somewhere else. Someone whispers there is no somewhere else. And that's when you realize it's too late. You're not just debating the tunnels anymore. You're inside them. Rome always said the Senate was the beating heart of the Republic. But what if that wasn't metaphor? What if this place was built over something older, something still pulsing, still listening? And what if Snorri has always heard it? As the session dissolves into muttering and pacing and a few quiet sobs, you do what no one else dares. You approach his bench. His eyes are closed. His breathing slow. You lean down. Snorri, you whisper, what do we do now? And after a pause so long you think you've imagined everything. Every tunnel, every map, every dream, he says, stop digging, start remembering. And he is still again, and this time, so are you. The chamber has changed. You feel it before you even enter. It's not colder today, not darker, but somehow smaller, as if the air has moved closer, pressing in, trying to hear your thoughts before you think them. You hesitate at the threshold of the Curia Julia. Others are already inside, but no one is speaking. There's no usual rustle of scrolls, no idle chit-chat about taxes or tunic dye quotas, just stillness and the sound of sandals on stone. You step in, and you notice it right away. No agenda. Nothing posted, nothing unrolled, just silence. And Snorri, he's not in his usual seat. Today he's moved, intentionally, unmistakably, to a bench at the very center of the chamber, a place usually reserved for speakers, envoys, or execution announcements. But no one tells him to move. They just sit around him in a loose circle. No hierarchy, no seniority, just orbit. And then you see what he's done. A circle of charcoal surrounds him on the floor, rough, smudged, but deliberate. Inside are two things. One, a small pile of broken amphora shards. Two, a smooth stone, polished to a shine, shaped like a tear. No one knows what to do, so no one does anything. Finally, the speaker, God's bless him, tries. He clears his throat. Honored senators, he says, voice barely above a whisper. We have no formal topic today, but we are compelled to gather to reflect on yesterday's phrase. He glances nervously towards Snorri. Start remembering. There's a pause, then a senator from the campus Martius stands. I dreamed last night, he says. A hallway beneath my villa. I followed it for what felt like hours. At the end, a voice said, you've been here before. You expect someone to scoff, but no one does. Another senator rises. I've seen that hallway, not in dreams. In the tunnel behind the bakery on Ricus Patricius, it curves exactly as he described. He sits, someone else. There's writing on the walls beneath the baths. Names. Some are mine. You start to realize they're not debating anymore. They're confessing. The tunnels have gotten into everyone's heads, into their memories, and none of them are sure which ones are real anymore. Snorri still hasn't spoken, but his fingers rest lightly on one of the amphora shards, turning it slowly. You wonder if he's listening or guiding, and then someone asks the question out loud. What are the tunnels trying to tell us? A low sound rises, just air moving, nothing more, but it feels like the walls inhale. And then, for the first time, Snorri opens both eyes. Not fully, just enough. He stares at the smooth stone in front of him, then says, calmly, like he's just remembered where he left a missing sandal. This is not Rome's foundation. This is its echo. You freeze. It doesn't make sense, but it feels true. Another senator leans forward. Echo of what? Snorri blinks once, then says the city we forgot to build. Silence, but not the empty kind. The kind you a torch sputters. Behind you, a torch like a whisper in a language you almost understand. No one moves, no one dares break the spell. Someone starts to cry. Not loudly, just a few tears. They don't even wipe them away. And then Snorri speaks again. Before walls, before votes, before names, there were chambers. Places we walked in the dark, repeating sounds until they became stories. He places the shard down gently, and we forgot. You sit back. You're not in the Senate chamber anymore. tradition layered like sediment over something much older. Something that isn't angry, just waiting for someone to listen. Snorri closes his eyes. The charcoal circle seems to pulse. Or maybe that's just your vision flickering. Then, in the far corner, a junior scribe stands up, slowly. His voice shakes. There's a door behind the archives. I never noticed it before. No one tells him to stop. He continues. It doesn't lead to the library. It goes down, way down. I only opened it a crack. The air smelled like stone and something burnt, but not bad, like something waking up. A few senators look at each other. You don't move, because you already know what's coming. The tunnels aren't spreading. They've always been here. You're just finally remembering how to see them. Snorri exhales, and the room seems to breathe with him. You don't remember walking to the Curia Julia. You were home once, possibly. Maybe you ate. Maybe you stared at a wall and tried to remember your mother's voice or your own handwriting. But now you're here again. Sandals damp from dew or dreams. Toga draped slightly wrong. Heart a little too quiet. And when you enter the chamber, something's different. No one is seated. No one is speaking. Instead, they're all standing in a slow, deliberate circle around the center where Snorri sits. As always, but today, he's not alone in the middle. Beside him, resting on a small slab of black stone, is a mask. Not decorative, not theatrical. Plain, ancient, worn smooth in places where a face would rest against it for hours, maybe longer. You feel it as you step into the space, the pull of something that doesn't want worship or power, just recognition. The speaker says nothing today. He's here, but he's just part of the circle now, like the rest of you. It's Snorri who speaks first. Eyes closed, hands folded, voice like gravel soaked in wine. You've all heard them now, and no one denies it because you have. Maybe not voices exactly, but rhythms, echoes, that sensation that something knows you're there as you descend stairs that shouldn't exist. Or when you pass a vent and catch a cold draft that smells like candle smoke and forgotten syllables. Another senator nods. The dreams are clearer now. They all lead down. Snorri doesn't reply. He doesn't need to. Another voice speaks from the circle, someone you barely recognize. In mine, I found a hall full of urns, but they weren't funerary. They hummed, like singing jars. A woman beside him adds, mine had books, hundreds, but they opened backwards and none of them had names. And then, quietly from the oldest man present, I saw my younger self, writing a law I never proposed. It was already carved into the wall. You suddenly feel unsteady. You haven't told anyone, but you've had a dream too. A door, always locked, cold to the touch. It whispers your name, not to invite you in, but to remind you, you closed this once. Snorri finally lifts his head. Barely. Enough. This city was never finished, he says. There's a long pause. Then, because it wasn't supposed to be, you try to make sense of that, you fail. But your body understands. Because you feel it in your teeth, in your spine. The sense that all of this stone, scrolls, statues is just the upper crust of something much deeper. A skin stretched over a forgotten skull. Snorri gestures weakly toward the mask. No one moves. Then he says, one of you must remember with me, and that somehow is more terrifying than anything he's ever said. Because remember doesn't mean recite. It doesn't mean study. It means feel something you've buried so long it doesn't have a name anymore. The youngest scribe takes a step forward. He's shaking, but he kneels beside Snorri. Snorri doesn't touch him, just breathes. Then says, do not put it on yet. You must first forget what you are. The room breathes in, one inhale all at once, and for a moment you see the city beneath the city. Not with your eyes, but with something older. Corridors with no walls, libraries that whisper as you pass, stone that rearranges itself based on your regrets, a city that molds itself around memory. Not stone. You blink. You're back in the chamber. Everyone is still. Snorri has closed his eyes again. The scribe hasn't moved. The mask rests between them like a coiled question. Then Snorri speaks one last time, almost inaudibly. The tunnels aren't leading us away from Rome. A pause. They're leading us back. No one leaves when the session ends, because it didn't. It still hasn't. There are no bells to signal that today's session has begun. No opening prayer to Janus, no bored magistrate unrolling a scroll with exaggerated sighs. Instead, there is only the sound of rain, a soft, persistent dripping that echoes through the Curia Julia like the slow ticking of a clock no one set. inside, and for the first time you hesitate. Not because of fear, though yes, something inside you is afraid, but because the threshold feels different now. Heavier, like stepping into a memory not your own. The chamber is dimmer than usual, the torches fewer and further apart. No one is sitting, the benches remain untouched. Everyone stands along the walls, gathered in the shadows, as if being closer to the center has become unwise. Snorri is already there. Of course he is. But today, he's not sleeping. He's awake. Fully. His back is straight. His eyes are open, and in his lap rests a single scroll. Aged, brittle, and tightly sealed with no wax, just thread. Knotted intricately like a net. Beside him, the mask. Untouched, and near the edge of the circle, the young scribe who knelt beside him yesterday. Still kneeling, still waiting, still remembering. Snorri speaks. His voice is softer today, less gravel, more silk. Still ancient, but with a clarity that chills the room. There was a Rome before Rome. The room stiffens. He continues, not on this ground, but in the mind. Built from repetition, from gesture, from shared silence. He lifts the scroll, and when it was forgotten, it went below, not buried, just recessed into the gaps between stones. You feel dizzy, not from the heat, there isn't any, but from the truth in his tone. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself, the kind your bones understand before your brain does. Snorri turns slightly toward the young scribe. You remembered something, didn't you? The scribe nods. I saw a word, not Latin, but I knew what it meant. He swallows. It meant weight without mass. A tremor passes through the chamber, not an earthquake, not anything so crude, but a response from below. You feel it in the arches, the pillars, the stone beneath your sandals. Snorri leans forward, scroll still unopened. That's what the tunnels are. Not path, weights. The speaker finally dares to ask, what are they holding down? Snorri smiles, but it's not kind. Buzz, gasps, and silence. Someone stumbles into a bench behind them. You want to leave, desperately, but your feet won't move. Your knees feel locked, like you're a part of the foundation now. Just another detail in a story being told from below. Snorri gestures to the mask again, to the scribe. This time, no words are needed. The boy lifts it, not over his face, but over the scroll, and suddenly the threads unravel. Every knot undoes itself. The scroll uncoils like something alive, releasing not just parchment, but air. Thick, stale, mineral-rich air that smells like time. Everyone leans forward. On the scroll, no words, just a series of impressions. Handprints, spirals, arrows pointing inward, not forward. Notations written in a script that pulses as if inked in heartbeats. And at the center, drawn in bold, uneven charcoal strokes, a doorway. No handle, just a shape. Like the outline of a thought no one dares finish. Snorri breathes deeply and says, this is where we end. Then he looks around at all of you and adds, or where we started. Depends on who remembers first. You don't know who speaks next or if anyone does, because in your mind all you see is that door. And somewhere, far below your feet, in a place you now believe truly exists, something just turned to look at it, and then looked up. Snorri closes his eyes again, but this time he does not sleep. He's listening. The next day, Curia Julia feels like a tomb pretending to be a chamber. You arrive early again, though time no longer feels anchored. There's no real early or late anymore, only presence and absence. And today, everyone is present. Every senator, every scribe, even the torchbearers who normally stay outside have come in, clutching their unlit torches like children with dolls. The center of the chamber remains unchanged. The scroll lies open on the black slab, the symbols burned into every eye that dares glance at it. The mask rests beside it, and Snorri is standing. No one breathes for a full minute. He hasn't stood in years. Generations, some say. And yet here he is, upright, steady, his toga folding around him like ripples in still water. His face is blank, peaceful, too peaceful. The speaker approaches slowly, unsure of what this moment requires. Senator, Snorri, he says, voice trembling. Should we begin? Snorri nods once, then raises a hand, not to silence, but to beckon. He wants someone to join him. The young scribe, the one who held the mask yesterday, starts to rise, then hesitates. It's not fear, it's something more primal, as if stepping into that circle will change him in a way no title or office ever could. You almost volunteer, but you don't, because you know deep down, you already have. Everyone in the room has, the moment they started dreaming of spiral halls and whispering bricks, the moment the tunnel must understand, memory is not about the past. He begins to walk in a slow circle, feet tracing the faint charcoal ring from the day before. Memory is architecture. A pause. It holds shape, it casts shadow, and when it decays, the city forgets how to stand. You close your eyes, you feel it, not metaphorically, literally. Beneath your feet, the faintest shift, like stone flexing, like a joint long unused, beginning to move again. Someone near the wall stumbles. Another senator drops his scroll, then stares at it as though seeing it for the first time. A murmur spreads, not panic, not excitement. Recognition. Snorri places his hand on the scroll. It goes dark. The charcoal lines fade, not vanish, not smudge, but recede, like tide leaving sand. In their place, new shapes emerge, hidden beneath the first layer. Names, dozens, hundreds. Some in Latin, others older. Some in alphabets you've never seen. Some that seem to spell your own. The room shifts from silence to stillness. You realize now, this isn't a scroll. It's a registry of everyone who's ever remembered. Snorri's hand moves slowly over the markings. He pauses over one, then looks up, right at you. You don't know how, but you know. It's your name, not your Roman name, not the one carved on your father's ring or your villa's plaque. The other name. The one you whispered into the dark when you were a child, afraid of the cracks in the ceiling, the one that echoes in the tunnels when no one is there. Snorri nods, and finally, for the first time in all your years in this chamber, you step forward, into the circle, into the space where memory lives and Rome forgets, and something older still waits. Snorri speaks, not just to you, but through you. One must go down. Everyone understands. No vote is needed. No law passed. The Senate doesn't rule anymore. It remembers. You kneel, and the floor beneath you responds ever so slightly. Dust shifts, the stone warms, and somewhere below, a door begins to open. The floor is not a floor. You understand this now, not as theory, but as experience. When you knelt in the circle beneath Snorri's gaze and the fading echo of his words, the stone beneath you softened. Or maybe you softened. Either way, something gave. Something yielded. And the chamber, the great Curia Julia, did not protest. Because it remembers. It remembers more than you do that this place was never truly the top, only a lid. And today it opens. There is no grinding, no dramatic crumble of ancient slabs, no hidden trapdoor revealed with fanfare. Instead, the stone under your knees simply becomes not there. One moment it is, the next it isn't. You do not fall. You are taken gently downward. And Snorri watches, not surprised, not proud, just certain. You don't look back as the light of the chamber fades above you, partly because you can't, your body won't turn, but mostly because you're not supposed to. You know that somehow. Descent is slow, agonizingly slow. There are no stairs, no walls, no edges, just you moving down through something that feels thicker than air, softer than darkness. Time loses shape. Maybe a moment passes, maybe a week. And then, floor again. But it's not stone, it's dust. Thick, pale, soft as ash. You open your eyes. You didn't know they were closed. You're standing in a vast chamber, not carved, not built, but formed like a lung beneath the city. The walls curve with impossible symmetry, rippling like sound made solid. The only light comes from you. Your skin glows faintly, as if remembering every torch you've ever seen. You take a step. Dust doesn't scatter, it absorbs. And then you see it, the doorway. Dust is on the scroll. No handle, just the outline, smooth, tall, pulsing faintly as if it knows you've come. You approach, not out of bravery, not out of duty, but because your name is in there. You reach toward the edge, expecting resistance. There is none. Your fingers pass through the boundary like smoke, and the moment they do, you hear the voices, not around you, inside you. They don't speak in words, they show. A woman laying the first stone of a temple without tools. A child walking into darkness holding nothing but a name. A senator, centuries ago carving a symbol into the wall just once before sealing the tunnel behind him. They are memories, not yours, but somehow also yours. Because these tunnels are not beneath Rome, they are beneath memory, and you have just stepped into them. You turn, yes, now you can, and you see the chamber stretch infinitely behind you. Hallways curve out in all directions like ribs. In the center, a platform with a single object on it, the mask. But not the one from the chamber. This one is older, cracked, warped slightly from heat or time. Its eyes are closed. You reach for it, and when your fingers brush its surface, runs through your spine like a plucked lyre string, and from the far walls, carved in light so faint it flickers with your breath, a message appears. One above, one below, one to remember, one to remain. You don't know what it means, but you do. You hold the mask in your hands, and far above, so far you feel it only in bone, not thought. You sense that Snorri has sat down again. His work for now is done, and yours, just beginning. You are holding the mask. You are holding the mask. It's heavier than you expected, not by weight, but by meaning, like gripping the first word of a forgotten language, or the last silence before a storm. The surface is smooth where it shouldn't be, warm in places where dust clings thick. The eyes are still closed, and in that moment you understand why. This isn't something you wear to see. This is something you wear to be seen. Behind you, the chamber breathes, not literally, but close enough that you no longer question what's metaphor and what's function. The walls inhale with each of your heartbeats. The floor hums faintly, not in sound, but in memory, as if dozens of footsteps are still echoing through it, all the ones that came before you. You step onto the platform, and with each step the dust clings to your legs like ash remembering fire. The mask tilts forward in your hands, gently, willingly. You bring it toward your face, but before it meets your skin, the chamber responds. A low vibration, deep, like a forgotten note struck on a hollowed god. Pause, not from fear, from reverence, because you're beginning to feel what this place truly is. Not a prison, not a temple, a mirror. A memory shaped into stone, and Rome has been reflected through it for centuries, building, decaying, rising, forgetting, all on the thin crust layered above this endless, echoing mind. You place the mask over your face, and the world shifts. First, nothing, not blackness, not emptiness, just nothing, like waiting inside a pause. Then, light, but not from a torch, not from any sun you've known. This light feels inside out, as if your thoughts have turned luminous and are now leaking into the air. The mask tightens, not painfully, but intimately, as if it is adjusting to your mind, not your face. And suddenly, you're not alone. You're still standing on the platform, still in the chamber, but also, you're in a city you've never seen but always known. Not Rome, something older, something less finished. Streets that don't end, buildings without doors, statues carved from unwritten ideas, and walking among them, others, masked, silent, watching. You are seeing the memory beneath memory, the draft that came before history. You hear voices not speaking to you, but through you. We built this not to last, but to remember how it begins. Stone is for forgetting, dust is for keeping. When the city above forgets, the city below must listen. And then your voice joins them, but not your voice as it is now. Your voice as it once was, centuries ago, saying, I will return, when they no longer ask why. The vision fades. You fall to your knees on the platform, breath coming fast, chest heavy. The mask loosens. It doesn't fall. It releases. You place it gently back on the stone, and you understand. You were not sent down here to find anything. You were sent here because you already knew. You stand. You walk toward the far end of the chamber, where there was once just darkness. Now there is a staircase, cut from the stone itself, rising upward, but not toward the chamber you came from. No, this is a different direction, a side path in time. You step onto the first stair. Behind you, the platform dims, the light recedes. The mask no longer glows. Above you, silence. And as you ascend, one thought whispers in the back of your mind, not a warning, not a fear, but a fact. The room above has already changed. You were gone for minutes, but something old came up with you. The steps are narrow, worn not by feet, but by the slow erosion of intention. Each one feels like a choice. Each one hums faintly beneath your heel, as though asking permission to carry your weight. You ascend without question, not because you know what's waiting, but because there's no going back. Whatever part of you descended into the chamber below is still there. Or maybe you never left. Maybe you are the echo now. And the version climbing these stairs is the remembering part, the one that rose finally when it was called. The stairwell curves, left, then tighter, then impossibly tight until it spirals not around empty space but through it. The air changes, the walls grow slick, then dry, then hot, then perfectly still. And then, a door, not ancient, new, wood, iron hinged, ornate but rushed, as if someone tried to copy the design of something sacred but couldn't resistance, and you step into the most disorienting sight you've seen yet. The Curia Julia, but not as you left it. It's brighter, cleaner. The benches are full of men you don't recognize. Their togas are crisp, their sandals polished. They speak in hurried, clipped tones. Scrolls flutter, ink flows. It's the Senate, revived, rewritten, and yet no one notices you. You walk across the chamber, feet silent on the stone. They speak of trade and temples and border disputes. Their voices echo cleanly, too clean. There is no dust, no charcoal, no mask, no snorri. You look to the central bench. It's empty. The cushion where you used to sit is gone. The floor beneath it freshly scrubbed. A senator rises, young, sharp-eyed, words polished like coins. He says, "We shall strike the tunnel records from all archives. Too many rumors, too much superstition. Let us return to structure, to clarity, to surface." A murmur of agreement. Another adds, "If we forget deep enough, the city will lift again." They vote. Unanimous. A scribe marks it down. Decree 8994. Erase the spiral. You step back, breath shallow. They are rebuilding, but not in stone, in amnesia. You glance toward the eastern wall, the spot where the spiral was carved. Gone. Gone. Polished clean, but in the flicker of a torch, you see it, just for a second. The spiral. Faint. Faded. Like something trying to remember itself. And then it's gone again. You understand now. The Curia you knew is gone. This is a new surface, built fast, built to forget. But beneath it, beneath every layer they lay, you are still down there. So is Snorri. So is the map, the mask, the breath of memory carved into hollow stone. You leave the chamber silently. No one sees you go. They never saw you arrive. You step into the sunlit forum, and everything is brighter than it should be. Too bright, as if Rome is trying to burn away its shadow. But you feel it beneath your sandals, still humming, still waiting. The memory is not erased, it is buried. Now that you remember, you are the tunnel. You don't walk through the forum, you drift. Your feet touch stone, but it no longer feels like a surface. It feels like skin stretched over something older, pulsing in slow rhythm. The sun above you is too clean, the air too still. The faces around you are full of purpose, but none of them are looking. Not at the ground, not at the shadows, not at you. You pass merchants shouting about grain prices, boys chasing each other with wax papyrus fans, a priest muttering a prayer to Fortuna while avoiding eye contact with a cracked statue base. No one notices, or maybe they choose not to. You pause beneath the shadow of a column. You run your hand along the marble. It's new. It should be new. But your fingers feel ridges, symbols, a spiral. Carved shallow, worn smooth by time or denial. You exhale, and the wall breathes back. The stone beneath your palm rises slightly as if in recognition. Not like it remembers you, but like it knows you're one of the ones who still hears. And for a moment, you hear it too. A voice deep beneath the plaza stones. Still here. You withdraw your hand. Your chest tightens, not from fear, from knowing, because you understand something now, something Snorri never said aloud. Rome was never built over the tunnels. Rome is the tunnels. Every law passed, every stone laid, every forum rebuilt, raised, rebuilt again. None of it covers the memory. It only reshapes it, paints it, fools the eye. But the spiral always waits beneath, and you are not the first to remember. You're just the latest. You keep walking down an alley near the baths of Agrippa, a place you barely noticed before. It seems smaller now, deeper, narrower. You count the bricks without meaning to. There's a door, a plain one, half-rotted wood, iron studs, a faint circular burn around the keyhole. You knock once, then twice with your palm flat. The door doesn't open. It dissolves. Not physically, it's still there, but in your mind it fades, becomes irrelevant. You step through it without resistance, and suddenly, down. Stone steps, not the kind carved by hands, but worn smooth by time itself like thoughts pacing inside the skull of the city. You descend, no torch needed. Your eyes adjust, as if you've done this before. As if the light itself remembers you. You don't know how long you walk. The tunnels bend, not in straight lines, but in questions. Each curve feels like a prompt, each echo a reply. You begin to see things, not hallucinations, memories, but not yours. A girl lighting a candle with no flame, a man building a wall only to step through it. A mask, your mask, passed from hand to hand across years, across centuries. You stop in front of a branching tunnel. The left leads downward, steep and sharp. The right is still, yet somehow present. You kneel beside him, his eyes are closed, his hands folded, and in them, clutched gently, is a stone. Smooth, tear-shaped, the same as before, but this one glows faintly from within. A heartbeat, yours. You place your hand over his, and you understand. He didn't die here, he arrived. This was always where he was going, where all those who remember must go, not to vanish, but to anchor, to become part of the structure, part of the echo. And now, he's offering it to you. Not the stone, the place, the role. You can take it, or you can keep moving. Let the spiral call another, let someone else kneel, let someone else hold the memory still. You close your eyes and listen. And somewhere above, far above, a senator forgets a name mid-sentence. Somewhere else, a child dreams of a hallway she's never seen. Somewhere else, a scribe drops his stylus, something unsure how letters work. Because something in the surface is shifting. And you know what they don't. The tunnels have always been beneath them. They just never knew the surface was the illusion. You do not take the stone from Snorri's hands. You almost do. For a moment, kneeling there in the deep, in the dark, you feel the weight of legacy, the silent pull of becoming the one who holds the memory still. But something in your chest pushes back. Not defiance, not fear. Something quiet. A whisper of motion because you understand now. Snorri stayed so you could move. He remembered so you could find. He anchored so you could open. So you rise, not suddenly, not with drama, but with the gravity of someone who has just declined eternity. Snorri's hands don't tighten, they simply rest. He is not a monument, he is a threshold. And you have passed through, you turn away from him, not out of disrespect, but with the reverence one gives to a closed book that lives inside you now. The tunnel ahead is narrower, but the air feels new, cooler, fresher. Laced with something that doesn't quite smell like air at all. Something that smells like, you walk. The path turns sharply, then again, you lose all sense of direction. The spiral tightens, not like a trap, like a focus. And then you stop, because suddenly there is light. Not torchlight, not fire, not dream, but the soft, white-blue hue of possibility. And there, embedded into the wall, not carved, not painted, but grown into the stone. You see something impossible, a door, but not just any door. It has no frame, no hinges, no lock. Its outline pulses slowly. It's made of light and memory and the thinnest veneer of time. And on it, scrawled in dozens of languages, layered over each other like dried leaves, is the same word, again and again. Begin. Your throat tightens. You've seen the spiral. You've walked the tunnels. You've stood in the chamber where memory sleeps and wakes and sleeps again. But this isn't remembering. This is the other side of it, the step forward. You reach out your hand. The door responds. It doesn't open, not in any physical sense. It simply accepts you. Your fingers pass through, and your mind splits. Not painfully, like peeling back a curtain to reveal another room you forgot you built. A voice enters your thoughts, not spoken, not Snorri's, not even yours. Just there. You are not the memory. You are the one who walks with it. Keep walking. And then you are through. What meets you is not a chamber, not a tunnel, not even a city, but a field. Wide, endless, bathed in silver light from a sky that remembers stars long gone. There are shapes, moving figures, some masked, some not. Each one walking, slow, calm, purposeful. And as you join them, you realize this is not after the memory. It is before the forgetting. A place where knowledge walks until it is ready to return. Where stories stretch their limbs before crawling back up through cracks in cities, where whispers rest before becoming prophecy again. You walk, not quickly, not toward anything, just forward, because that's what remembering truly is, not preserving, becoming. And somewhere far above you, Rome argues about odds again. The senator declares tunnels illegal. A child dreams of a stone mask. A scribe finds a word he didn't write, and beneath it all, soft, steady, endless, the spiral hums. It is not finished, it never is. You don't know how long you've been walking. The field stretches in every direction, rippling softly like the back of something sleeping just beneath the surface. There is no wind, and yet the grass sways. No sun, and yet the sky glows. Time is no longer a ruler, only a suggestion. You pass others. Some walk beside you in silence. Others fade in and out, as if flickering through layers of memory that no longer bind themselves to chronology. You begin to recognize faces not by name, but by sheer impression. wet clay holding a scroll that burns gently at the edges. A man with no mouth whose footsteps make sound even in this silent place. A child, too young to have lived in any realm, carving spirals in the air with a fingertip. They do not speak, because here speech would be too small. Instead, you feel things. Rushes of thought, shared recollections that pass between you and them like exhaled breath. A scented chamber covered in ivy. A tunnel filled with masks, each watching the next. A scroll unrolling endlessly, writing itself with the ink of vanished cities. And then, you stop walking, because ahead of you rises a hill, low, gentle, but unmistakably shaped like a spiral laid into the earth. You begin to climb. Each step is soft, the ground accepts you, and at the summit, there is a mirror. Not glass, stone, polished smooth, set upright in the grass like it grew there. It does not show you reflection, it shows a room. The Curia Julia, empty, dustless, waiting, and then a shimmer. The mirror shifts, and now it shows a tunnel. Not the one you came from, a new one. The stone is rougher, the spiral edged deeper. A door at its end is beginning to open. Someone is coming, not you, another. You place your hand on the stone. The surface ripples, not visually, through you. A voice, deep and clear, speaks not aloud but within. Every step you took here was carved long before your first breath, and every step someone else will take now begins with yours. You realize you're not here to find something, you're here to become something. You are the continuation. A thought that was once whispered, a step that was once imagined, a door that now opens for someone else because you opened yours. Behind you, the field stretches on, endless. Others still walk, but ahead. The path leads back. Not back to the chamber, not back to Snorri, back to Rome. But not the Rome you left, the Rome that is remembering again. The mirror flickers, and now just for a moment you see them. A group of senators standing in a room full of scrolls they don't recall writing. A scribe dreaming in daylight. A child pointing at a spiral drawn in chalk and saying, "I've seen this." You smile, because you know what's happening. It's beginning again. You close your eyes, and with a steady breath, you step through the mirror. You awaken on the floor of the Curia Julia, alone. No torches lit. The benches are empty, but dust has returned. The spiral is faint, just barely visible beneath the grime. And in your hand, a mask, not the old one. Yours. You stand, and you know your time below is over, but your time between just begun. Because now, you are the one who walks the layers, the one who sees the cracks forming before anyone else hears them, the one who watches and listens and waits until the next one remembers. Morning has broken in Rome, but the sky seems unsure about it. The light spilling into the Curia Julia is dim, unfocused, like a thought interrupted mid-sentence. Outside, life continues. Wheels creak across stone, priests chant too loudly, and pigeons squabble over crumbs near the foot of a statue that never quite looks the same 2 days in a row. But inside, stillness. You stand alone in the chamber, the mask clutched lightly in one hand. The dust beneath your sandals is faintly stirred by your breath. No scrolls on the benches, no voices echoing. The air feels untouched, like it's waiting for you to speak first. You do not. Instead, you walk the chamber slowly, deliberately. And as you move, something becomes painfully, wonderfully clear. You see what no one else has seen. Not because they couldn't, but because they never thought to look backward and downward at the same time. You glance toward the eastern wall. The spiral carving is barely there, faded almost to nothing, but your eyes find it immediately, because now it's not a symbol, it's a door frame. You approach, kneel, press your palm flat to the stone, and behind your skin you feel it, a presence, not watching you, holding you like a thread wrapped gently around your wrist. From behind a voice, you're early. You turn, a man stands near the chamber entrance, mid-30s, toga loose, scroll under one arm. His face is calm, eyes soft and full of understanding. You say nothing. He steps forward, slowly, respectfully, looks to the mask in your hand, then to the spiral, then back to you. "I thought I dreamt you," he says quietly. "But you've been walking through this chamber for weeks now." You nod, so does he. And then without being told, he walks to the place where Snorri once sat. He sits. The cushions are gone, but he does not flinch. He places his scroll on his lap, then begins to write. No one told him to. No one gave him a task. But like you, he remembers. You stand in the center of the chamber now, unsure next, until you feel it, that hum beneath your feet. Not the kind you follow downward, but a new vibration, upward. You look at the mask in your hand and something inside you clicks. You turn toward the door of the chamber, the same door you've passed through 100 times, but this time, you're not leaving the Senate, you're delivering something to it. You step outside, and the world is too loud. Rome moves like it always does, chaotic, bold, indifferent. The sun blazes above the rooftops, voices clash, carts rattle, pigeons continue their daily war. But everywhere you go you see signs, a shopkeeper tracing spirals on a jar without realizing, a child stacking stones in a perfect downward curve, a mason who pauses mid-repair, then digs deeper instead of patching. It's beginning again, not as prophecy, not as fear, but as awakening. And you're not above or below anymore. You are the line that connects the two. You walk, not to escape, not to arrive, just to carry the memory forward until it finds its next shape. And somewhere beneath you, in a corridor still breathing, in a chamber still pulsing beside a man who never truly left, the spiral hums. One walks, one waits, one remembers, and Rome. The alleys of Rome are narrower today, or maybe you're wider, filled with more than before, carrying weight that doesn't show in muscle or shadow, but in memory. Every step echoes just a little longer than it used to, like the ground is listening now, not just holding you. People pass, they nod, they glance, but no one sees. Not truly. Not yet. You carry the mask beneath your toga, pressed close to your chest like a heartbeat. You don't trust to stay inside. It's not heavy, but it knows. Sometimes you think it warms in your hand when you're near certain places. Other times, it seems to vanish in weight entirely, as if its burden is being shared by something unseen. You round a corner into a plaza you don't remember ever noticing before. A quiet one. Cracked fountains. 4 broken pillars. A slab of stone at the center, perfectly circular. Worn smooth, not by rain, but by knees. You approach. No one else is here, and yet the space feels used, not abandoned, rested. You kneel at the circle, and from beneath your robe you lay the mask gently on the stone. At once, the air changes, only slightly. A hush, a silence that seems to ripple through the walls around you, not like fear, more like a city holding its breath. You place your hand beside the mask and you speak, not loudly, not ritualistically, just a whisper, a phrase you didn't plan but have always known. Let it begin again. The wind rises not from the sky but from below, pushes up through cracks, through soil, through memory. You sit still, you do not resist, because this is how it starts, not with prophecy, not with fire, but with a placement, a mask, a hand, a breath. You close your eyes and you see them, snoring and sitting forever. The young scribe, now older, still watching, the woman in the field, drawing circles with her fingertip, the child at the spiral wall, the man in the tunnels who hummed a name that wasn't his. All of them, you are not alone. You never were. Because this isn't about you, it's about the continuity, the chain, the hum that slips through cracks in cities and settles in the quiet parts of the mind. And now, in this forgotten plaza, on this worn stone circle, you feel it settle again. A pulse, a promise, a place. Your eyes open. The mask is gone, not stolen, not hidden, just gone, returned, like a key that no longer fits the door because the door itself has changed. You rise, and this time you know exactly where to go. Not down, not up, across. You walk through Rome like a messenger with no scroll. Your task is not to deliver, but to be delivered, moment by moment, from silence to silence, until someone looks at you long enough to see. And they will, because the spiral always finds its next curve. That evening you return to the Curia Julia. The benches are full again. A new senator speaks with conviction about trade along the Tiber. Another debates coin weight. None of it matters, and yet all of it does, because the spiral doesn't only speak through silence. Sometimes it listens through noise. You watch, then you wait, and when the speaker pauses just for a moment, you feel it, a faint breeze, drifting through the chamber from nowhere in particular. You smile, because someone just remembered something, and somewhere beneath your feet, Rome stirs. Sure. By now, the footsteps feel different. Not louder, not faster, just more connected. Each step you take lands not on stone, but on a memory. Each alley you cross feels less like a route and more like a line being drawn across parchment, across centuries. The city has not changed, but your relationship to it has. You no longer move through Rome, you move with it. You pass the baker's stall where 2 days ago, the girl tray spirals into spilled flour. She's gone now, but the pattern remains barely visible in the dust near the door. You pause, and for a moment, you swear it pulses. Not with magic, with recognition. Because now, wherever the sparkle goes, it's not waiting, it's spreading. It doesn't need tunnels anymore. It moves through people. And you've become one of its many doorways. You turn onto a narrow street near the edge of the Aventine. Quiet, the kind of street that's older than it looks and newer than it knows. At the end, a low archway, worn, bowed inward, almost apologetic. Beneath it, a man sitting on a wooden crate. His robe is simple, dusty. He holds no scroll, no seal, just a blank piece of wax tablet in his lap, and a stylus he hasn't used. He sees you and smiles. Agreeing to the staircase, he says, you nod. I followed it, but it kept changing direction. Still, you say nothing. He lowers his voice. Then I heard someone say, ask the one who walks. He looks at you expectant, and you understand. They meant you. This is how it happens now. The ones who remember don't descend. They reach out. So you sit beside him, no torch, no ritual. You place your palm flat against the tablet in his lap. He watches, breath shallow. You press once firmly. And when you lift your hand, the spiral is there. Etched, unmistakable. He stares at it, his lips tremble, and he says, not to you, not to himself, but to something listening. I see it now. You rise. He stays seated, because that's what this moment was for. Not to bring him somewhere, but to remind him he's already there. You walk on. Back at the Curia, the tone is shifting. The senators still argue about roads, temples, flood banks, but now there's a rhythm beneath their voices, a hesitation before each decree, a glance toward the floor before each vote. They're starting to feel the shape of the silence beneath their words. One senator stands to speak, and halfway through his sentence he stops, looks down at the marble, and says softly, I've said this before. Everyone stares, but no one mocks, because deep down they feel it too. You sit in the back unnoticed, the custodian of echoes, and when the chamber clears for the day and the torches burn low, and the scribes gather their wax tablets and shake the ink from their sleeves, you remain, just for a moment longer. You reach into your robe and pull out a new mask, not yours. The next one's. You set it beneath the eastern bench, where the spiral once was. You don't need to know who it's for, only that it will be found when it is remembered. And with that, you rise, and Rome continues. Bright night comes quietly, as if it knows better than to announce itself. The streets of Rome empty with the gentleness of a curtain falling. Voices fade. The final merchants tug close their awnings. The flicker of torchlight on walls gives the city a heartbeat, slow, steady, ancient. You walk, not because you are searching, not anymore. You walk because you are being followed. Not by footsteps, not by spies, by memory. It clings to your trail like dew, soaking into the bricks and the alleys, leaving behind not proof, but resonance. You pass a fountain where someone once whispered a name in their sleep. The water glows slightly as you move past. You walk beneath an arch that no one remembers building. On the keystone, a faint spiral, barely chiseled, worn down to a breath. You don't stop to touch it. You nod instead, and the stone seems to nod back. In a courtyard between two forgotten temples, you find 3 people waiting. They do not speak to each other. They do not move when you arrive. They are not dressed in white, not marked by symbols, just people. One holds a broken comb, one has ink on both hands, one carries nothing at all except an expression of knowing. You stand before them. You do not ask, why are you here? Because you already know. They've begun to hear it too. The low hum in the stone, the echo that lingers even after footsteps fade, the sense that beneath the forums, beneath the temples, something old is organizing itself again. You reach into your robe. You withdraw a new scroll, sealed with charcoal wax. No name on the ribbon, no decree within. Just one word burned into the outer skin. Below. You hand it to the one with the ink on their fingers. They take it reverently. The others do not speak, but they are nodding. To you, to each other. To what comes next. Later you return to the Curia Julia. It is locked. No session today. Or perhaps one was cancelled, or perhaps the building itself torch that's barely burning, and you wait until a child appears, no older than 8, barefoot, sticky with dust. She sits beside you without speaking and pulls something from her sleeve, a small stone, smooth, tear-shaped, drawn with spirals and soot. She offers it to you. You take it. She smiles, then runs off, not playfully, purposefully. You hold the stone. You understand this is not a beginning, not a continuation, not even a return. This is a handoff. The spiral doesn't just pass downward anymore. It passes sideways, through children, through stories, through accident, through Rome. That night in your dreams, you see the tunnel again. But this time, you are the tunnel. The walls breathe with your lungs. The silence moves like your thoughts, and above you, Rome goes on, arguing, building, getting. Forget all of it. Not anymore. Because now even forgetting has a shape. And that shape is a spiral. The spiral never announces its final turns. It only tightens slowly, quietly. And you, now having walked beneath, above, and between, feel its shape inside you. Not as a symbol, not as a mystery, but as structure. You are no longer following it. You are living in it. The morning air tastes of wet stone and olive smoke. Rome wakes with its usual clatter, its impatience, its music of sandals over mosaic, arguments about taxes, a poet shouting at a goat, and none of it bothers you, because everything they say, every sentence that pretends it's happening for the first time, has a ghost beneath it, a thread, a spiral. You return to a place you've only visited in dreams, the courtyard behind the Temple of Mercury, closed off by collapsed columns, and a fig tree that grows where no light should reach. You pass through the cracks like smoke. There's no ritual here, no altar, just a slab of ancient marble broken clean down the center. You kneel, you place your palm to it, and the marble sings. Not aloud, within. It doesn't tell you anything new. It doesn't reveal prophecy or command or names. It simply reminds you that you are not alone. Others have knelt here some centuries ago, some yesterday, some not yet born. When you rise, you are different. Not visibly, but inside your bones something clicks into place. The final note of a long-forgotten chord, the last echo returning to its source. You walk through the alleys without fear now. You don't check behind you because the spiral is ahead, always ahead. And today it leads you one final time to the Curia Julia. It is open again, but it is not in session. The benches are empty, the torch is unlit, and yet you are not alone. Scattered throughout the chamber in silence sit 5 others, not senators, not scribes, just people. Some wear sandals, some don't. One carries a bowl of olives, one holds a mask, one has their hands folded, whispering the same phrase again and again, too softly to hear. You take your place in the center. No one looks at you. They don't need to. They know. You place your hands on the floor. You close your eyes, and for a moment there is nothing. Not silence, not sound, just pause, as if the city itself is holding its breath. And then the spiral speaks, not in words, not in visions, but in movement. From below, the hum rises, not loud but does not shake the floor. It anchors it, and in that moment you understand the final shape. Rome was never built. The top memory. Rome is the memory. An endless reinscription of forgetting and remembering and forgetting again. And you were never meant to escape the spiral. You were meant to become a part of it. The one who sits when all others have stood. You open your eyes. The others are gone. Only the torchlight flickers now. The Curia is quiet, and beneath your hand the stone is warm, alive, listening, because someone, somewhere in the city just whispered, I remember. Outside, Rome celebrates something. You can hear it faintly. Bells, shouting, laughter. Perhaps it's a festival for a minor god or a victorious general or someone's convenient myth retold just long enough to justify feasting. It doesn't matter, because here, inside the Curia Julia, time has stopped pretending. The spiral has fully surfaced now, not on the floor, not in stone, but in you, and it begins to turn. Not a metaphor, not an image. You feel it in your chest, in your spine, in the space behind your eyes where dreams used to echo. Each breath curls inward now, each thought loops gently, carrying the weight of all those who walked before you. Snorri the scribe, the girl with the stone, the child at the fountain, the builder who carved the first wall in silence. You sit. You are not waiting. You are anchoring. Because this is the moment. The one the tunnels were never meant to lead to. The one they emerge from. A footstep Soft, cautious, you don't turn. Another step, then a voice, uncertain, young. Is this where it begins? You nod. The voice exhales, then sits next to you. No introductions, no questions, because the spiral calls only those who are already part of it. From behind, more footsteps. Two this time, a woman in a scholar's robe, a merchant with clay dust on his fingers. They do not speak, they just come. By the 10th arrival, no one's surprised. By the 15th, the chamber breathes with warmth again. Not from torches, from presence. It's not a crowd, it's a circle. The spiral rising. And you, still at its center, feel the words forming not in your throat, but in your being. You speak, not loudly, but clearly. We do not preserve, we do not preach, we do not pass judgment, we walk. A pause. Then the youngest voice in the room says gently, and when we stop, you smile, your eyes close. You place your hand on the floor, the stone is warmer than before. Beneath your palm, the spiral pulses once. Then another begins. Somewhere below, a new tunnel opens, not carved, revealed. Its air smells of wax, and ash, and olive leaves. Its walls hold names not yet spoken. Its floor remembers every step already taken. And in that tunnel, far beneath the city, a single light stirs and starts to move. The spiral completes its turn. Not with a flash, not with a sound, just a quiet, steady settling, like the final page of a scroll laying flat after a long unrolling. No applause, no grand epiphany, only a stillness so full it hums. You remain in the center of the Curia Julia. The others around you are silent now, not because there's nothing left to say, but because what needed to be said has already been remembered. Each face reflects a piece of the spiral, a scribe who once doubted and now listens, a mason who sees more in cracks than in smooth walls, a senator who no longer debates to win, but to understand. No one tells them what they are, they simply are. You look to the floor. The spiral is no longer visible, but you feel it under the stone, beneath the words, beneath the votes, beneath the centuries. And now, it no longer needs to hide. A torch flickers near the door. Not lit by anyone's hand, just lit. And you understand what comes next. Not another descent, not another dream, but the thing the tunnels were always preparing for. Return, not to forget, but to carry. You rise. You step forward, not as a messenger, not as a witness, but as a curve in the line. The others follow. No formation, no command. Just motion through the door of the Curia, into the sun, into the market noise, into the Rome that still doesn't know it's remembering. You pass a merchant scratching a spiral into a clay pot. You pass a child humming a tune with no origin. You pass a soldier resting in the shade, dream muttering about stairs that lead nowhere. And you smile because the spiral is no longer beneath, it is among. At sunset you find yourself back in the field. Not the one of grass and stars, the real one, dusty, edged by olives, quiet. You sit, you breathe, and somewhere nearby a door opens, not in stone, not